Welcome to Community Living Access. I'm Don Lawson. One of my passions, besides being a part of a great agency that does great supports with individuals with developmental disabilities, is Straw Bale Gardening. Yes, I love it. So I want to welcome you to our little Straw Bale Garden patch here in the parking lot of Community Living Access. That's right, we're growing vegetables in a parking lot. You can grow them anywhere. So it's going to be a fun journey, and we'll talk a little bit about how it happens and how you can do it, and maybe how you can get involved in growing vegetables in a straw bale. So the very first step, you have to say, where do I want to put my straw bales? There's a number of different ways of laying out your bales, but this is a very basic and simple setup that most people start with. In this situation, are laid out in a straight line. Of course, sun is always vital, and trying to position the place to where you're going to have as much sun as possible. As the foliage and as the vegetation grows and all those kinds of things, if I had a bale beside it here and beside it here, they could overpower, depending where the sun is, your other vegetation and your other vegetables that you put in there. So it's really important to plan out where you're going to do that. There is a right or wrong way to set up your straw bales. They're not flat down on where the twine is. They're on end, so to speak. But there is a top and a bottom. And the top is, if I had about 20-30 straws in my hand, and if I put them in my hand and I held it like that, and if you looked at it, you'll see all the holes. Holding the straw bale, one side, just one of the bales is that. If you look down, it almost looks like little straws. And the reason we put it up that way is that it helps with the moisture going in and nutrients going in, so it's the best side to do that. We've put also a ground cover down, depending on where you're going to put your bales. You want to maybe do that just to avoid, especially if it's on like soil or grass or whatever, just to impede weeds coming up on through, and it just keeps it neater for your straw bales. A lot of people will just use cardboard. That is probably the most used technique, but I've just put down a sort of a ground cover cloth. I probably wouldn't need it here because we're on gravel. That's right, we're growing vegetables on gravel. Go figure. That's the amazing thing about straw bale gardening. You can grow your vegetables anywhere, on a rooftop, no soil that's been contaminated, rocks. It's amazing where you can do that. Trellis System helps in terms of growing things vertically. I want to grow everything. I don't have to, but I want to grow everything vertical. And we all know tomatoes need support. So you set that up here. This is one of the very basic designs that Joel has in his book. This technique, I was just using some T-bar and some 2x4s. I just slotted the ends so it slits in there, and I just reinforce it with a little bit of wire. So you know what, it's going to hold the weight. It's amazing how heavy tomato plants and those things can get with all the fruit and those kinds of things. So it really works well. So we've set it all up. Now the next step is that we have to condition our straw bales. If I was just to plant, if I got a straw bale and I put it out and got it all set up, and if I just tried to put a plant in and grow, it wouldn't grow. I have to change the chemistry of my straw bales into the same chemistry as you would find in soil. How do you do that? Well, we're basically what we're doing with the straw bales is that we're not just conditioning them, we're heating them up. We're helping them to decompose, and you use a nitrogen-based product to do that. So there's a number of different products that you can use to condition your bales, but you do that over basically a 10 to 12 day period, and there's a formula. It's important that you follow the formula. It's in Joel's books, it's on the websites. Some people will say, okay, well, I'll get nitrogen and I'll put it on my bales, and you know what, they say 1 cup to start off, or a half cup to start off, or whatever it is. Well, I'll put a little more because, you know, I'm in a hurry and I want to get it done. Well, there's where people start making mistakes. Joel's perfected this formula for over a number of years, different testing with various bales, and this was the best method where people will have the easiest success. So I cook my bales Often one day with nitrogen, next day just fully watering and saturating it to allow it to ferment. What is also important is that you don't, you can overwater or underwater into that piece. So there's again a very important formula. One of the simple tricks is that also trying to use water when you're first conditioning your bales that is air temperature. So I set up some barrels and my water is not just out of a tap, because once the water comes out of the tap, it's cold. I'm trying to heat up my bales and cook, and if I'm putting cold water on my bales, well, it's going to slow up the process. It'll still work, but it'll slow your process up. So once you put them through the steps with nitrogen and water, at the end of it you bounce it out with a 10-10-10 or a 12-12-12 fertilizer, just to balance everything out. Give it a couple of days. It's conditioned, now you're ready to plant. There is formulas in the book and recommendations of, how do you space your plants and what plants. There's companion planting, all that garden stuff that you do with every other kind of gardening method. I can plant seedlings that you can purchase from greenhouses. You can also grow your crops from seed, but there is a technique on there where I would layer down about, an inch of potting soil mixture that has been sterilized. So you don't use soil from your garden. If you do, you're going to contaminate them. You're going to introduce potential other bacteria or insects or diseases. Some people will use the old, and we've done it all ourselves before in science classes. We've got a paper towel, and then we put our seed in another wet paper towel. You can use some of that technique with some soil and that kind of stuff as well. It's all been done. With the seeding, the key is watering, which is a very important part of the success of straw bale gardening. Each straw bale needs about a gallon, roughly a liter, of water or moisture per day. If you had a really heavy rain, and oh great, I won't have to water my soil garden now for 2 days, 3 days. Well, that's not true for straw bales. So you won't do the next day, but the next day, because what happens is the bales will only hold so much water. And you don't want to overwater them for keeping them too wet. So I would just reach my hand right down, right into there, and if you reach there, oh, okay, it's quite wet, and I can feel it. But on average is a gallon of water per day. That's probably the most time-consuming piece of straw bale gardening. Same for the other kinds of gardening. How I got around that for a number of different years, I did set up an irrigation system on a timer. And some people set up a drip system and soaker hoses. Soaker hoses work. They haven't had the greatest success because they don't hold up well to the environment in the long run. The other key is that I don't sprinkle right on top of my, especially tomatoes, and there's a few other plants that you want to be careful with. I'll be watering down around the base. I want to keep my foliage dry. I don't need to wet my foliage, and we think that we try to do that. Well, when you start doing that, and depending on the time of year, that's when you can attract all kinds of other problems. Since our last recording, it's probably been 3-4 weeks, and our vegetable garden has just exploded. It's just amazing what has been happening with our garden here, and there have been some wonderful successes. There's been some challenges every garden has. As you can see, our tomatoes, they are blooming. We've already eaten some wonderful black crim cherry tomatoes. Other tomatoes are really starting to blossom. And behind me is our peppers. We've got wonderful peppers. We've got some hot peppers. And then to my left is a squash plant. We've had a few challenges with our squash plant. It hasn't been producing, the female flower has been producing lots of male flowers. You need both of them to get fruit, but we're confident that that journey will happen. Besides that, we've already had a number of feeds of 3 or 4 cucumbers, and our cucumbers are just growing and blossoming. Past our cucumbers, it looks pretty bare. That's because we've harvested the majority of our lettuces. Lettuces grow very fast. You can cut off your lettuces when you harvest them in a way that they'll start growing back more lettuces. We also, thanks to Meadowland Farms, they've supplied us some more lettuces that we're going to plant. So we'll have lettuces into August. You can keep on regenerating it or regrowing it through the whole season, right into the fall. Look at this plant, look at this. And if I do this, oh, And those that recognize it know that's basil. There's nothing better than walk by a basil plant, touch it on your hands, and put it and smell it. Oh, it is yummy. Well, there's some different basils throughout the bales. There are great plants for companion planting. We did have some frost, but because our plants were in straw bales, they survived because there was natural heat in the roots of our bales. Autumn is here. Fall has arrived. We're close to the end of September. That's when people have been busy already harvesting all kinds of vegetables. We're at the tail end of it now. Still have some tomatoes that are still blooming, and we have some squash that soon will be ready. All our peppers have been picked and eaten. All our cucumbers have been devoured, and lettuces. But we even planted some late lettuce, so you'll see some of those that you're still, even this time of year, you still got some lettuces growing. Very shortly, we'll be taking the old plants, and we've got a recycling bin over there. We'll put them in there. I've had great luck this year with the 7 bales. We haven't had any infestation of any kind of insect that can bother all your traditional plants that all gardens have, even straw bale gardens. We haven't had any, which is just amazing. Fall is starting to show. I mean, we've got some of our squashes over there. They're almost ready. They're great size. They're just having to ripen up a little bit more. You know, with the cooler nights, the plants are starting to turn, and they're starting to give way as Mother Nature intended. We still have some jalapeno peppers that nobody's picked yet. As we start now wrapping up and putting your straw bale garden to bed, is that what do you do with your straw bales? In Joel's book, he has, after your garden, you harvest your garden and get all your vegetables out. What remains, and he said, what remains is gold. Oh, okay. Gold, yes, gold. Not the precious metal, rather than the perfect compost. So you're left with now a perfect compost that can be used in all kinds of ways. He calls it black gold. It's exactly what remains after the harvest is complete. The valuable compost left behind has many uses and can solve problems anywhere in your garden or gardens. If you're interested in straw bale gardening at all, my Bible, Straw Bale Gardens Complete by Joel Carson. If you like to be involved in a Q&A session where you can ask questions, we will set that up. So if there is serious interest in that, we will go down that road. But otherwise, please reach out to me if you have any questions. I love to turn you on to straw bale gardening and help you get started. We all are going to miss working on our straw bale gardens at Community Living Access. Thank you, Community Living Access, for being part of this incredible journey. Look up Straw Bale Garden Complete by Joel Carson, and you'll be on a journey that will put smiles on your face and put lots of yummy in your tummy. Bye for now.